miserable.
This is episode 5 of the Miserable Podcast.
Cinco.
Yeah, I was going to do it.
Actually, let's do this one in Spanish.
Hola.
There he goes. We got the
Phil could
peak
probably
warning on already. All right, so episode 5 in English.
Por favor.
Yes, because that's pretty much all we can do. Had a good episode 1, 2, 3, and 4. Everybody that has checked that out, thank you so much. If you haven't checked those out yet,
Thank you.
please go back and listen to those whenever you get the time. Also, don't forget we do Casual Fridays where we talk about pretty much whatever we want and put those
some
out on
relevant
Fridays, and we have a good time with those. So, episode 5.
Listen or watch.
Listen or watch, true.
Yes.
Paul, you're always on the ball when it comes to the options for which people can consume the media.
Ball E.
Yes. Paul is on the ball.
Pauly, not to be confused with Samsung Bally, which is a Casual Friday
What
episode.
if they made a Samsung Polly and it was
No
just
one would
me? My sister's going to listen to this episode and be upset that you said that.
Everyone would like it. Pauly, everyone likes Pauly.
Everyone sometimes likes me. Remember when Phil hated me, but then
Yes.
loved me, and now he's like, all right.
Now he's indifferent.
Yeah,
I
I
remember
just didn't understand you. That's all.
that's why I just took.
he literally like hated you. And then there was a time, I'll never forget, there was one day
You're like, yo, where's Paul?
where you hadn't been around in a couple weeks, and he was sitting there. He was like, "Yo, where's Pauly?" I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "Why is he asking that?" And he was like, "I missed that dude." And I was like, "Wait, what just happened?"
I got through to him.
You did.
I cracked
did.
through his candy shell.
Kundi.
All right, that's enough nonsense. So now
What are we
let's.
talking about today?
So we talked about episode 3 was what is success. Episode 4 was dealing with disappointment. Episode 5 today, we're laying this foundation, talking about success and the path to getting to our goals, and you deal with disappointment along that way. Something else that is very appropriate to talk about when it comes to attaining goals and working and things like that is balance. So I think that's a good topic today to talk about is balance. And we'll see where this conversation takes us. If you're not familiar with the podcast, these type of episodes aren't scripted in any way. As a matter of fact, I knew about 10 minutes ago what this podcast would be about, and they just found out about 2 minutes ago, right before we pressed record. So, the whole point is for us to just really explore kind of our thoughts and feelings on a topic like this. So I'm really interested to see kind of what angles we all come from, and really kind of discuss what's important and what's not important, and how we kind of are stuck doing both of those things in life. But how do you find that
Balance.
that good balance for those things? So, what do you think of, Phil, when I say the word balance? What is like the main things that stick out in your head?
I suck at it. Not like balance. I suck at that too. But
Like physical balance, like
physical
I can't stand on
balance
one foot, y'all.
at all. I'm gonna fall over. But it's something actually that I'm just now starting to understand that I definitely need some work on that in my life. I'm generally very driven, especially once I kind of lock into something. Like when I'm at work, I'm like
At work.
I'm all in.
Yeah.
Like I'm not thinking about nothing else. I'm just working. And that's definitely an area in my life that I definitely need improvement on. My wife was the first person to just kind of tell me, like, I kind of like suck at like balancing things.
Yeah.
She really brought it to my attention with the whole, like, when we were doing like rally worship, like heavy. That was like my focus. I was locked in. And it was just like, she was over in the corner, like waving, like, hey, I'm over here. I'm over here.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, put your hands down. Like, what are you doing? You know? And it was just like, yo, like, you know, you got to kind of balance everything.
Sure.
And so it's definitely a work in progress for me. And it's something that does not come naturally. When I'm on and when I'm focused on something, I'm very driven for whatever that particular thing is at that particular time.
Sure.
And when I'm off, I'm just off. And even my diet is like that. There's times where I'm just like, yo, buy cereal. I want cereal. And I'll have cereal for like a month. And then cold turkey, I'm done.
You'll
I
have
don't
cereal
want
for a month and then cold turkey for another month.
for another month. No, just cold turkey, just be off of it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
got
done
you.
with that. You know, like I'm not on that right now. I'll just move on to something else. So
So it's something that kind of invades your entire life and not just your like work habits or work.
right. It's just naturally how I am. I'm just
Well, that's me. So working on music, 2 months, burn myself out on it. Then I'm working on something else
right.
for 2 months, burn myself out on it. Then I'm working on my truck for 4 weeks.
And then it sits in the driveway with just Bondo spots.
And then I'm burnt out on it. And then, but so that's how I am too. It's hard for me to say, okay, I'm dedicated to this project and I'm dedicated to this project and because I think in a similar way, I'm so focused on it and I'm so energy driven. That's like, okay, I'm going to put all my energy in this. And I don't, like spread it out or
Right.
ration it. It's
Right.
like everything I got's going into this.
Right.
So, that kind of leaves me short sometimes where it's like, okay, well, I have these other things and it's like, I can't think about that.
Yeah.
So I'm very similar in that aspect. Same thing with like food too. It's like where I'll eat something, the same thing, and then it like makes me sick.
Right.
So I don't want it anymore.
I'm off. Done.
But then it's like, hey, I kind of want that again,
Right.
a little bit later.
Right.
So, which is not very balanced. That's like kind of on and off. But something you said that I thought about. So you said a lot, kind of like what I was just saying about like focus. Like when you're at work, you're focused on work. So I don't think focus is necessarily unbalanced, right?
Right.
So like, so then you made the reference to rally worship where we were, rehearsals and
Right.
all of these things constantly. So it was pulling time from your wife, from your
Right.
family. And so then I can see like the balance thing, but I don't think we should confuse like, okay, when I'm on a task, I'm focused on that task. Because I don't think that's balance. So, but then where you started hitting balance, the way that I think about it was when you hit to attention as far as your time, right?
Right.
So when I hear balance, the only thing that rings out in my head is time. Like, where am I spending my time? And I think that's how most people. Is that what you think? Is that like?
Yeah. I was gonna say for myself, it's almost the opposite from you guys. And I still, even though it's the opposite, I still lack balance. For me, I can get focused on things and I can get to a point where like I've worked so much on something that it does burn me out. But I struggle with the opposite side of it, with thinking about or having and giving my energy to in my mind and my thoughts to too many things at one time. I'm tapping the desk. So I end up not finding balance in giving my time and energy to things properly, equally, and
So-
approaching them with the care that they need. Because I'm doing one thing and I'm thinking about 15 other things.
Right. So that's interesting because I always think about balance as in like one thing versus another one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you probably also can't have balance if you're scattered between 15 different things. Then there's nothing even to balance almost, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where you're saying that's kind of where you find
Yeah,
yourself.
I
living.
think, I guess what balance is just a mixture of self-awareness and then awareness of the things in your life. So obviously when you're at work, you kind of need to be locked in because that's what you're there to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's probably, to a degree, it's probably for the best that you're not like overly concerned with maybe things going on at home. But if things are okay, if you've got a lot of negative going on, then I guess it's kind of hard to avoid that. But I mean, giving yourself that time to focus to that is important, which I struggle doing. I'm often, or less often, am I focused on giving my energy to one thing. So it's a negative for me, but I think it is necessary.
I'm curious from like your perspective as well, Phil. So talking about being on when you're at work, and y'all know I'm like that. I'm very one track mind because you always make fun of me. Back to the focus idea, but then it's going to lead back into the balance thing. So I'm very one track minded. When I'm doing something, I'm on it, and you can call my name. And I don't do it to me. It is rude. I don't do it to be rude, but I'm so
focused.
And I don't know how to explain it. I've tried to explain to people that I hear it, but my brain doesn't register it. So sometimes like people say something and it's like, it's almost like this is the only way when you take a garden hose and you pinch it off, like sometimes I feel like it's coming into my brain, but it gets pinched off for a minute while I'm doing something. And because y'all know how it happens. Is y'all call my name and I'll be in on something. And then all of a sudden, whatever immediate task I was doing is complete. It's like I sit back and then it's like that garden hose is opened up. And it's like, and then I'm like, huh? And you're like, yo, I said your name 2 minutes ago. You know what I mean?
We've been friends for almost 20 years. Or maybe not, maybe closer to 15. And I still don't understand that about you.
But I'm not lying, right?
No,
That's true. I'm not like tricking myself.
Straight up disrespectful. Right?
That's right. You don't like him anymore, right?
Nah, I can't say that. But I don't understand that, like, at all.
But when I explain it like that, does it make sense? Like, I'm not just making it up trying to...
No.
You could be faking us out for this long. You're a really good actor.
I think he just straight up ignores you, and he goes. I think he forgets that he ignores us, and then he goes, "Wait, did you say something a while ago?"
But there's no intention in it. There's no intention.
It's just a version of that.
Right. Where you just like deliberately not answer or not respond to the text message, and it's just like. You respond, you're like...
even if you don't do it deliberately...
Oh, I thought that I responded.
Like, even if you don't do it deliberately...
You didn't respond.
I just didn't press send.
Like, you never look at a text message and be like, oh, yeah, I need to respond to that, and then get distracted by something else. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Right, but it typically doesn't take days.
Are you referring to something?
So, okay. So, let me get where I was getting, right? Let me get where I was getting. So that, like being focused, okay, I'm talking about putting energy. So I put a lot of energy into that focus when I'm doing anything. So for instance, when, say, we have the rally or something on Thursdays, when me and my wife are driving home, my wife wants to talk about what we just did. I'm done. Like, I'm done with that thing. Like, even like tonight, we've been recording. We've been here since 10:30 this morning, and it's almost 9:30 at night. So we're going on 11 hours being here, just recording things, setting up. When I get home, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah,
I'm done. I've put my energy into this. But if I do get home and my wife is still awake, the first thing she's gonna say, "How'd it go?" And I'll be like, "It was good," and I'm done with it. You know what I mean? but she wants to expand on it. And I understand. And I don't think like, oh, women just want to talk. That's not the point. Like, I get it, right? She wants to have that conversation.
She wants to engage with you in the conversation,
Well,
but she wasn't there to.
My energy is spent on it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to, whatever, that's
Right.
like, I just need to give my brain a rest from it. So that being said, like, even though that focus is just focused there, if you're putting all your energy there, what's funny is I can also see how having that kind of focus and then working for 12 hours, 13 hours, and then going home and say, you still got the time and you're going to spend time. But if you don't have the energy because of all of that focus or whatever that you put in on the other side, that's
not balanced.
That's not balanced.
Right.
So there's that of it too. It's like my mom said something the other day, and she said, my whole life, she's realizing as she's getting older, is that she just took life too seriously. And I was like, okay, I could try to argue against that, but if I step aside and like realize, okay, this is somebody speaking from experience that I don't have.
Right. Sure.
And what if she's right? And I started thinking, and I was like, okay, so let me find what she was really trying to say, or like, what she said. And it was like, maybe these things that we're like so focused and so driven on, and then take all of our energy so that we don't have it for our wife, for our kids, for our family, for whoever. Like, maybe we're doing too much there and then not leaving enough on the other side. So, which I'm kind of arguing against myself too, because I was talking about time. Like, it's finding that time. But if we're at the rally for 4 hours, but yet I can't even talk afterwards, or don't want to talk, or
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Let me ask y'all this, since you both have wives and families. What do you think, as far as your thoughts are in the balance of that? So if you give a certain amount of time to something, say the rally, or today to this, 12 hours or plus probably of our time, and your family was here for a little bit, so but what is a potential solution for balance in this situation? Like giving equal time to them, or
I guess it depends on the individual.
Okay.
And the relationship. For me, it's just some time, right? Like, I can't just go home and be like, all right, I'm going to sleep. There has to be some form of investment. Go ahead.
well, okay, because you hit on something that I kind of had a personal revelation a few weeks ago. Because it's tough. And this is the balance, right? So if I spent too much time at home, I can't provide for my family or as much for my family. So I'm doing a disservice to my family,
Right.
by spending too much time. Okay, so then you need to spend time working, but you can't spend too much time. So here's the balance thing. But so this is where I fell on it. So I'm like, okay, so what helps you draw that line? Like, how do you know? So I starting to think the amount of time. This is where I'm at. So I'm like, okay, if I'm taking so much time away from my kids that it bothers them, well, I can't measure it like that because they don't want you to leave.
Right.
Ever. So that doesn't do it. So much time that it bothers your wife. Well, we're all human. And there may be different expectations or different understandings. So I'm like, you can't measure it like that. How about so much time that it bothers me? And I'm like, well, that may be a better way to gauge it. But then again, I could get my priorities all messed up. So I'm like, oh, how much time? So I was thinking like, how do you decide the amount of time? And then this is what hit me. And this is the answer to your question. It's like, maybe I shouldn't focus on the amount of time that I'm spending, but the quality of time that I'm spending. So say I only got 30 minutes, but for those 30 minutes,
I'm
all in. No phone, on the floor, rolling around in the playroom, not on the couch, trying to get her to do what I want to do. Now let me just read a book. But She wants me to. I'm all in. All in.
And that's
on
probably especially for a child. I feel like the things that's going to make the impact the most.
And the things that
they're going to be
remember.
like, Daddy, remember when we,
they're not going to remember you sitting on the couch for 4 hours and being in the same room.
I think that's just where, especially like what you just said, like I'm trying to soak it up because I think that's what I'm missing, bro. And I guess it's me being selfish. It's like the
maybe
biggest,
not intentionally.
Not intentionally.
Yeah.
I think the biggest learning curve for me, in my mind, once I got married, it hit me like I needed to be a provider. Right? Once I have had kids, it was just like, not only am I providing for someone that I vowed to take care of, but I also have younger ones now that are depending on me.
And you need to provide at a different level.
Exactly.
To someone like that.
So in my mind, without even communicating with my wife, it was just like, I got to go out here and get it. Not even knowing, like, I'm like really trying to get it. I'm like 10, 11 hours just working, getting home, and I'm beat. And I'm like, yeah, she's going to appreciate.
Right.
She could care less. She was just like, man, like, just come home, spend some time with me, put your phone down. And that's the point that I was like, that's what I was missing. Because in my mind, I'm like, yo, she's going to appreciate me if I'm, food on the table, everything is going to be good. She was like, yo, I could care less about that, yo.
Yeah.
It's like to the point now where she's just like, put your phone down. You're always on your phone. And I've ignored that junk. Like, what?
What
are you talking about?
I'm not on my phone.
What are you talking about? She's like, yo, she's telling me, and I'm not even listening, bro. She's like, yo, put your phone down. You always on your phone. And I'm like, yo, I'm trying to like take care of business. I'm like responding to emails and
right. So like you were out working, and then when you were at home, you were still working.
Yeah.
Which again, I think sometimes there will be those moments,
right?
Sure.
Where that time. So that's where I was stuck. It was like, okay, well, how do you this time doing that and this and that. And me, I have a very flexible schedule. I work a lot. I work on a lot. I'm involved in a lot of different things. But so it's hard. Like, I used to tell my wife, this is the age-old, I think, argument for like every couple. It's like, you could be home 3 days straight. And what do they say that next day? I want to spend time with you.
Right.
You're like, we want to spend time. I haven't left the house in 3 days. You know what I'm saying? But then, if you're honest, or if you have the revelation like I had, you're like, I get it. They don't want my
quantity
physical
of time.
Self just
Right.
in the room.
Right.
They want that part of me that I give when I'm at work.
Right.
They want that energy and that
Right.
focus and that passion.
Right. That's
And
crazy.
it's tough.
That's crazy, bro.
I'm blowing your mind right now.
yeah. You got me. You got me right now. Like I'm soaking up that revelation for real. But that's real, bro. That's
I like, because the quality aspect is the connection, right? And if you guys are, there might be people out there that get something from just sitting in the same room together, watching TV or being on your phones. But the quality is connecting with that person. And you can't do that unless you're
Focused on
doing something
I
together.
think as men, naturally we're conquerors. And I think, especially just being married, it's one of those things where you have to consistently remind yourself that you need to continue to conquer your bride. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like it's not like put your flag up and you're like, all right, I made it.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And you like kick back and chill. She wants to be courted like forever, bro. And I think like looking at my in-laws, bro, my in-laws are like, they are like forever in love, bro. And I'm just like,
birds.
how? like chill out. And
stop loving each other.
For the longest, I remember when Raquel and I were dating. I think we were going to the movies one time. and we're leaving the house, and the amount of love that was like shown was weird to me, because I came from a culture and a family that was like totally different.
Right.
There's like all this, oh, I love you, kisses, and I'm just like,
What is that?
she's gonna be back, yo. Chill out. We're just going to the movies, like we'll be back. I remember like walking out of her house, like that was weird, like, and then just paying attention to it, like they're like that all the time. I came from a culture where it's like you don't really show emotion like that, like that's like a sign of weakness. So
But that
to
doesn't,
me,
I don't think that's necessarily, that means there's something wrong with your culture.
no.
But that may be something that in your relationship that y'all have to understand,
Right.
or
Right.
find some middle grounded. Maybe I don't know. You know.
Exactly. So it was just like a little weird. So now that I'm like married now, and I'm like watching the way how they like interact. Of course, the Hispanic culture is very like loving and
Yeah.
you know like
Physical. And,
yeah, just a whole lot of kissing and all of that. Like it's just, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not necessarily with all that. Yo, like definitely like that quality of time. Like that's crazy, bro. Like what you just said, like, cause I definitely don't spend it. It depends. Like with my kids, there's times where I am rolling on the floor, and there's times where I like put my phone down, and I'm like chasing them around the house.
Man's doing some self-reflecting.
Yo, for
like
real,
live
like-
on air right now.
Like, yo,
If you're not watching the video, he's like, you could tell you're just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
thinking. But
yeah.
I'm doing the same thing.
yeah.
You know. So let's do this. We've been talking about balance as it relates to us and others, family. What about balance for ourselves? So my personal thing, I alluded to it earlier, but I have been notorious, especially in the past, the last year or two. I've really kind of become more self-aware and have begun to work on this. But in the past, I have worked myself just into breakdowns. I guess is the just complete and utter burnout. It's probably a better way to put it, where I just get sick of what I'm doing. I am like absolutely at wit's end about everything.
Sure.
I've lost confidence in it. I've lost interest in it. I've lost passion in it. And I just crash, usually in a mental and emotional mess, you know, just like it's a breakdown. That's probably the best way to put it. And I've done that multiple times until it happened one time and I was like, I've done this before. I don't want to do it again. You know, so you kind of get a grips on it. So what about, instead of like, you know, spending time, how much time you're at work, what are the quality of time that between the family and all of those things? What about just the balance for the sake of yourself? Because you can do what I've done. That is not balance. But I was simply working myself, and I don't always have. Me and Phil are similar in this way too. Is I can operate on a very small amount of sleep, probably like a third of what my wife gets. You know what I'm saying? Like there's 4 hours for weeks at a time. You know, I'm just not sleeping, and then usually after a few weeks, there's that one day where I'm just like,
Out.
boom, it's just out. You know,
Right.
but like so, but that's not balance. You know, and so what about the balance for yourself? Why don't you speak on that too, Paulie? Like what have you found? Have you found in your life that tendency, or no? Is that not a natural tendency for you, or maybe has it even in the other direction? Because you could have unbalance where it's like not doing the thing. So what do y'all think about that?
You know, I was thinking about this earlier at the beginning when you were talking. I don't think there might be some outliers, but I don't think that balance, how we see it now, like in our time, is a natural thing. I think there's so many things that demand us and demand our attention these days, outside of like the things that society has had for a very long time, families and personal connections. That's something, that we've had. So that's something that we've had as a society for a long time, right? Is the personal connections. But now,
You
like,
distracted.
I can't.
Just unlock it real quick. Sorry. We had a screen go dark on us. We want to make sure we're still working.
It's gone dark. But I was just saying, I don't think it's natural now. There's so many things that we're required to be doing that it feels like every year that goes by, there's something else that is pulling at us. So I think we've gotten to the point that we're like almost at a tipping point in human evolution and the evolution of society, that like because there's been research about sleep, right? So the thing for forever has been like, oh, you need 8 hours of sleep. Now there's some people that can operate fine on 4 hours. Like,
Which I've heard that the 8 hours thing is not.
Right. And they're doing, I read something the other day that they're doing studies now that earlier humans actually slept in 2 different daily cycles, like, or two different times. The cycle was like, you would sleep for a portion of time and then you'd be up to do something, whatever the responsibilities called for them at the time.
I've heard that.
And then there would be another portion of sleep. And because we're also living in a situation now with as society goes, where a lot of the things and habits that we have now that are considered normal are antiquated, based around like agriculture and things like that, post-industrialization, we don't have to worry about anymore, like daylight savings time, things like that, as a larger society. But I don't know if balance as we think about it and balance as we perceive it now is a natural thing that we as humans have.
So to that point, and
it's something we could strive for.
And all of this searching that I was doing during that time, I thought about, like, especially because you think of all the pressures, especially like being a father and being there for your kids. And I started thinking about, I'm like, man, look, all these dudes back in the 19th century, the early 1900s, like, they would be gone for weeks.
20th century. Yeah.
Just working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, you think now I can go on a work trip to LA and be back the next day.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And sure, they didn't have probably planned trips like that back then, but the whole point being is like, things took longer and people were gone. Like, if you were a farmer back in the day, forget it.
Yeah.
You came in the house, washed up, ate dinner, and knocked out and woke up we just talking about in the other video, 3 a.m. this dude was getting up. He grew up on a farm. Like, I mean, we have this idea, and it's weird because, like, I wonder where that's come from. That's like, you just have to be home as much as possible. And I think it's a good thing.
Right.
It's an obvious thing. And I think that's why we get caught up in it. It's like, it hits us and we're like, oh yeah, that's right. But at the same time, and maybe I'm just thinking like a man here or something, but like with those responsibilities that we have as men, like, that could be counterproductive. And I guess that's what I was alluding to earlier as well. Have you heard of thinking about just balance for ourselves? Like, have you heard of that, the thing that's happening, I think in Japan, where they've like, there's been all of these cases of particularly, I think, young men who are literally dying. And the cause is, from what I understand, simply working too much. Just being, just lack of sleep. That, I guess there's all of the things that come with that. Mm-hmm. But in general, they're literally dying because they are working themselves to death. Wow. Like, literally, like, it's an actual phenomenon that's happening. And I think it's specifically in Japan. So that being the far end of the spectrum, then there's also the other end of the spectrum that's complete sloth and laziness and not being able to provide and take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. at least. Have y'all ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
You never heard of that?
Something there's I may have come across something because that sounds familiar, but it might not even be that. It might have been something else. It might have been a disease that was killing people.
Yeah, I
Disease
remember
of overcommitment.
I remember hearing about that, and I don't want to.
Speak.
Yeah, no, it's in Japan. So there's a word for it. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it correctly.
Shoot.
Karoshi, which can be translated literally as overwork death. In Japanese, is occupational sudden mortality. The major medical causes of karoshi deaths are heart attack and stroke due to stress and a starvation diet.
Wow.
This phenomenon is also widespread in other parts of Asia. Yeah, so there's apparently governmental policies and agencies to combat this. There's a hotline that people can call. There's so I mean, I
wonder if it's like a thing that people are doing accidentally. You know, maybe it's just like as a culture or a part of their culture, those people are committing so much to the work that they don't realize that they're headed towards that as their destination. You know?
Yeah. So just check this out.
As opposed to like something like try to avoid any sort of too dark, but like suicide is something that is like an action that you perform that has an obvious outcome.
Well, I've never read it from that slant. I've never heard it placed in that context before. But check this out. This is just off Wikipedia. The first case of karoshi was reported in 1969 with a stroke-related death of a 29-year-old male worker in the shipping department of Japan's largest newspaper company. So that's the thing. It's like you're healthy, you're 29 years old, you shouldn't be having a stroke or a heart attack or any of those things. So why is that happening? The term was invented in 1978 to refer to an increasing number of people suffering from fatal strokes and heart attacks attributed to overwork.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, this is specifically it's physical pressure, mental stress. So there's actually a different word probably for people who commit suicide due to the stresses of overwork.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I just, this is something that I heard of, and it was one of those things when you hear it, and you're like,
what?
30-year-old dude, stroke, overwork. You're just like, you want to go, whoa.
I need to take a vacation.
Yeah, I need to go home right now. You know what I'm saying? But like,
crazy.
I think it's a little more intense. And what I've heard, and this could be completely wrong, but what kind of the way I've heard it is within the culture of honor and things of that sort, and honor for the family and things, that there's a lot of pressure sometimes. Sure. Even maybe in finding brides that may be a part of it, being accepted, you know, that there's a lot of pressure placed on those young men, which is funny because there's also, from what I understand, a trend of younger men, maybe in similar countries, who are completely drawn into video games, which happens everywhere, but I've heard about specifically there, where it's like serious addiction. So I wonder if it's like you either got to go all out to get it for society, or just completely pull back, you know, which I think even anybody can relate to that. You know, it's sometimes I'm like that, or maybe that's the nature that we were talking about, is like, you either got to be the best, you know, you're the first or you're last.
Thanks for Bobby.
For a movie reference. It's like, you know, but seriously, it's like I'm either going to go all out, or I just have not to try it. Also, I'm not a failure. I just didn't get involved in it. You know what I'm saying? Right. Which also is not balanced. Man, I'm serious. It's tough.
Yeah. It's a fine line. It's a fine line. I remember, and I think this is something that really drives me in just giving my all in everything that I do. When I was young, someone asked me to play drums for him. And at the last minute, there was like something else going on. It's like bowling or something like that. I don't know. And my mom was like, hey, aren't you going here? And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to go. And she was just like, oh, you can't do that. Like you gotta either
Can't walk away from that commitment.
you gotta be all the way in or not at all. And from then on, I was just like, all right, whatever I do, I gotta go all the way in.
Sure.
And that's been my driving force, like in everything. And I kind of just apply that to everything that I'm doing. If I'm at work, I'm like all the way in.
It's like my dad says, if you're going to do something, do it right.
Right.
That's always in my head.
Right.
Along with a job's not done until you clean up. That's the other thing you put in my head.
Right.
But like, yeah, I got you.
So I just kind of I take that and I just kind of just apply it to my life, man. And I've known that balance was like definitely an area of opportunity in my life.
So here's a point of conflict when it comes to balance. So you said, if you made a commitment, you got to stick to it. But what happens when something you've committed to is something that's causing you to be out of balance? Say like something like non-related to work. So let's say like a rally worship type thing or something that you said, okay, I'm going to be a part of this group and I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to commit to it.
Yeah.
But then you find that commitment you made is causing you to lose your balance. What then becomes more important? The balance or the commitment?
That's tough, bro.
My
That's tough,
stuff,
bro.
man.
my
That's tough.
like natural reaction to that while you were saying it was the I would tend towards the balance, but you have to have an honest conversation with whoever that commitment was made to. Like you have
Dear
to
Lord.
like like I mean obviously if it's a legitimate thing that's going on, that's you need to step away from something. And it's especially in a situation in church, God's not going to be mad at you. You know what I mean? So like whoever that person is that's in leadership in that situation, like if say who was rally worship or, like you say, hey, I know that I said that I would be here for you or for this reason, no questions asked, that kind of thing. But this is happening now. And I don't feel like I can properly commit myself to this thing and maintain health in XYZ, whether it be your family or something, something more personal. So, I mean,
So it's almost just like, because I agree, because
we can only do so much.
The obvious answer to that in light of, being a part of this at the expense of the balance with your family. The obvious answer is what is more important is the family.
Right.
Right. So I guess then it becomes being willing to say, I messed up. I made a commitment that I couldn't keep. I had good intentions, but...
Or you can't keep any more, but I mean, you could.
Yeah, because things
for a
can
time.
change too.
Right.
And I think that's a part of balance is being keenly aware of what has changed.
Mm-hmm.
So like, this always worked. It's not working now. I was like, wait a second. But this has changed and that has changed. So like the dynamic of my wife's role as a mother and my role as a father changed when we had a second kid.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be more involved now because, she bore the brunt of the
majority of the responsibility.
taking care of Malin. Well, then when you throw Miles in the mix, now I'm not off the hook for everything. Like, maybe I was all the things I was before. Not everything, but, which my wife probably does. I feel like this more than most wives do. I mean, that's just how I feel compared to what I do. But, that changed when we had the second one. So things do change, but sometimes we don't take account of those things. Like, when your work schedule changed, I'm sure there had to be some reassessing of other things that were going on,
Sure.
Man. It's one of those topics that we're gonna have a hard time ending this podcast because you
You
never
could just keep going.
right. You never really settle on a
Right.
and
You could definitely keep going. All right. What about this? I thought about this when you were talking. The saying that if you really want something, you can find a way to make it happen.
Sure.
Right. So if you really wanted to spend quality time, you find the energy. If you really cared about this particular topic,
I think you have to say that with a grain of salt, because not everything's possible, right? And to say that if I can't, then you're locking yourself into a situation where, like, by default you don't care because you can't make it happen.
bro, there's people out there that thinks like that.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
and
seriously.
that's the thing too. Like, I was thinking, like, they always say, like, when somebody's like, "Hey, can you do this?" A lot of times we say, "Oh, I don't. I'm too busy. I don't have the time." But if you care and you actually look at your day, you probably could make time for things. But
Absolutely.
you absolve yourself of any responsibility to do so, not necessarily because you don't care. It could be an unending list of things. Maybe you don't have the mental energy to add something else, or whatever the case may be. But I mean,
I say it's like anything else. Like, it's very easy to say, I'm not going to eat bread anymore. It's easy to say that when you're full. But when you're hungry,
and bread is all you have in front of you,
or not
something.
even that, but just when you're hungry, it's a lot harder to say, I'm not going to eat that.
Right.
Obviously. So I think it's the same thing. We can say, okay, what was the point that you made a second ago? I'm sorry.
That if you really
Right.
want
If you
something,
really want to do something. So back to playing with the kids with all your energy. Very easy for me to sit here right now and say, oh yeah, I'm going to go home and I'm just going to be all over the floor, rolling around, wrestling. I'm going to go up and down the stairs. I'm going to get up and down. I'm going to do this. It's very easy to say that.
till it's time to do it.
But when you get home from work,
Your back hurt.
and your back hurts and your knees hurt and you've been up all day and you just get out the shower and you haven't sat down in 11 hours, that's when.
And then it starts as soon as you walk in the door, and
Right.
the time hits the road.
Yeah.
buddy.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like that's when it's really tough, because it's very easy to know, like, and you were saying, like, well, if you really care, and that's true, because I'm a firm believer that people at the end of the day, they do what they want to do.
Right.
Right? Like I got everything planned out. I told my wife this morning, this is what I got going on Monday, this is what I got going on Tuesday. Wednesday, I got this commitment I got to come through on. Thursday, we got this. So I got everything lined up. But if somebody said, hey, I got tickets to the Capitals game on Wednesday, guess what I'm going to do? All right, let me see here. I can reschedule this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody's like, hey, can you come help me move on Wednesday? Hey, I got too much to
busy.
do. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like we
I got to do the dishes on Wednesday.
we do what we want to do. But the point I was making earlier and kind of lost is that when it comes to those more difficult things, when we know it's right, it's easy. It's not that we don't care. It's just that, man, when you're beat down, it's in your heart of hearts you care. And that's what you're saying. Like, take it with a grain of salt. It's not that you don't care. It's just that, man, like, we have a limited amount of energy every given day. And that's like science. You could look, our body has a pretty much set amount of calories that we burn every day. And if we're about to go over that, your body takes measure to slow it down. Like if you are not eating, if you've expended a lot of energy, your blinking slows. You don't realize it, but that's a mechanism that your body, a survival mechanism,
Right.
has put in place. That your blinking will slow. You know, it's like all of these things. Your thinking can slow down, and you don't realize it. You breathe more shallow. Your body is just conserving every bit of energy that it has. So it's a biological thing. It's not
crazy.
just an emotional and mental thing. Like, this is a biological mechanism that your body has to help you survive. This dude has already used this much energy, this many calories today. We have to slow him
Shut something
down.
down.
So it's back to what we were talking about 30 minutes ago. It's not just the time you're spending at work. It's the energy you're spending. Because biologically, if you spend it all there, you're stacking the deck against yourself. So when you get home, it's not that you don't care.
Right.
Your brain.
You don't have the capacity.
It's just like this. When you eat and your stomach expands, there's all of these signals that your body sends your brain that says you're full. Like it's like these
But I
signals.
eat so fast that it.
Well,
it's too late.
your body is like
that's a separate point. That's a separate point. But like your body sends you signals that says you're full. And if somebody were to set another one of those steaks in front of you, you'd be like, oh, it's the same steak that you just ate. It's like food when you're like, yo, you're at a restaurant, you're like, yo, get this food out of my face.
Right.
It's not because you don't care or you don't like that food. It's just because your brain, biologically,
you've had enough.
your body is telling you that's
enough.
it. And the same thing happens when we spend all of our energy at work and we get home. And your body's like, that's all you got.
But
So you can't like that steak anymore. You know, like it's
but with the food though, your body tells you like that's enough. How do we approach giving too much energy to that, like to providing for your family?
Right.
How do you give too much energy? Like, what's that cutoff point where it's just like, yo,
I think this is what I was thinking. I think the most important two elements of this topic are forgiveness and self-awareness. External forgiveness, like having the honesty in a relationship that you're in with like a wife or whatever, to be like, I'm sorry. I put today or this past amount of time, I've put too much into this and I didn't give to you what you deserve. And forgiveness internally. I messed up. I need to be better at this, whatever it be, relationships or personal decisions or eating habits. And then self-awareness. And you have to have that self-awareness to even know that you require the forgiveness. Because if you're not aware of where you're like incorrectly giving your time or incorrectly giving your energy, then you'll never know that you don't have balance in whatever that is.
That's good. That's good.
yeah,
That's true.
that's crazy.
I think a good place to kind of maybe leave this off, even though this is one of those topics you feel like you're not really settled.
No.
You know, I was just thinking that whatever you've been doing, whatever I've been doing, there's two different ways to look at it, right? So as a father, I could say, you know what? I am there for my kids because some people aren't there at all. And some people are there, but they just don't care, regardless of what they're doing. So I'm there and I care. So that, like, I can take pride in that. But it's also not using that as a crutch to say I don't have to do any better.
Comparisons are a slippery slope.
Right. It's like so we can, whatever the situation, whatever you've done as a father in the past, you know, I think we can look back and say, you know what? No, I haven't been perfect, whatever that is. I can't even figure out what that is. And that's why the ending to this podcast is going to be so awkward because there's really, when you're talking about balance, man, it's a scale. So it's constantly,
and it's a learning
constantly
process.
moving, you know? Yeah. And maybe that's part of it too, because if you ever get to a place where it's settled, then you know you're not in balance. As long as you got this little kind of
plus things change.
happening.
Like you said,
Right,
at some point
things
you had a
change.
second kid. So like, even if you felt like, and you legitimately somehow figured out balance, then there's a whole new element thrown into the equation. It's like, well, shoot, I got to redo this whole thing.
Right.
You know?
It was the same. Yeah, definitely with just change. I'm saying from being married, I kind of had to figure that out.
Right.
And then the curveball, like now David is here.
Like, listen to this. I'm not married, right? I have no kids. I'm completely responsible to myself. I'm 33 years old. I still don't have it figured out.
And then when you
and I'm very aware of myself.
When you do
extremely
move on to
aware of
these next levels, man, you get a glimpse of that. Like everything just gets
That's
thrown.
what I'm saying. I don't think it's natural. I think it's just like it's just what we do. It's just take it day by day.
I wish you could find balance in hitting this table as in not doing it at all.
You know
anymore.
what? I'm not an audio engineer, so I'm sorry to the world.
Oh, it's all good. But I think that's where, you know, I would love to hear people's feedback on what you do to make sure you're in balance or what balance even means to you. And I think maybe it's more just a feeling, really like a gut feeling. But, you know, I would just say as we sign off of episode 5 that for you as our listener, whoever is listening to this, I think, Paulie, that was good advice. Just be aware, do the best you can, and then offer yourself some forgiveness when you need it, and offer forgiveness to others that are out of balance, which is what I need from my wife a lot of times, is that forgiveness.
For real.
And it's good to have a wife every once in a while to make you aware. And you can see when they're about to approach it, they're like, look, it's okay. I understand you're working hard. I appreciate that. Well, okay, but what I wanted to say, and you're like, oh, I know where this is going. Yeah. But
you need a date night.
But yeah. So I guess whatever the goals are, being aware of yourself, understanding that you have a limited amount of energy.
That's
that
crazy.
Time is important, the amount is important, but quality is also important. And then being able to offer yourself forgiveness and not do too much comparison, because there's probably a lot of cruddy fathers out there who are just like, what do you mean? I'm still here, ain't I? You know, and they're satisfied with that, you know.
The only person you should compare yourself to is yourself.
Right.
Am I better from the guy that I was yesterday?
Which is a topic for another podcast, because if we get into that, we will go on forever. Yes. So thank you for listening to episode 5.
Thank you.
However you're listening
or watching, you can do all that like and subscribe stuff. That helps us out, apparently. I don't know. You know, honestly, we don't care. We're just really enjoying doing this. Yes. So do whatever you want. Don't like it. Our least favorite aspect is the social media side.
Yeah, it's kind of, it seems like a necessary evil, but we also want people to hear this so that we can hear back from people, because I would love to just get other people's thoughts on this, because I know somebody could like drop a bomb on us too. Yeah.
Drop some knowledge.
Which we would address in another podcast. Some knowledge. So thanks for listening. Miserable Podcast, episode 5. I liked this one. This was good. Phil, got your mind blown a little bit. Let's go.
Got me.
Miserable.